Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a new StarCraft 2 build order. Today we're gonna take a look at an extremely aggressive build order that Life actually recently executed versus Jaedong. We already did take a look at that specific game, so if you haven't seen that one quite yet, you should really quickly just check it out and just watch the game before watching this video. So Life, in this specific game, goes for a super aggressive build when he scouts that Jaedong is going for a Gasless opener. So that is the first and most important thing to realize. He plays completely normal in Zerg versus Zerg up until the very point that he scouts, okay, my opponent does not have any gas geysers at. So the first requirement for this build order to work is that you need to be able to actually fly in an Overlord in the main base of your opponent before deciding where you spend your first 100 gas. So you need to be aware exactly what your opponent is up to and exactly that he is opening up gasless right before starting the Zerg speed upgrade. Because else, you know, this push is just gonna come a whole lot later and I wouldn't really advise going for it anymore. Besides that, it is very important to note that this build will only work versus gasless openers, okay? Maybe if you're in the lower leagues, maybe if you're like bronze, silver, gold, something like that, you might be able to execute it, but in the higher league specifically, you need to know for sure that your opponent is going for a gasless opener before executing this, because in the early part of the game, you just do not have any units out to defend anything. So in this game, what Life actually does is play absolutely normal until the point that he scouts, okay, my opponent is going completely gasless, and then bam, he just flips the switch and goes straight up for this all in. So what he does is actually a roach play in two phases. He actually has the first phase, which is probably the most interesting one, where you instantly switch into about 8 roaches with +1 attack that attacks super early on. After that, while he's pushing out with those 8 roaches, he goes straight back into droning, gets a third base, gets a lair up, gets +1 armor as well, and then gets roach speed, and then he does a second attack wave, which we will also take a look at in this video. Now keep in mind, this actually is a build order that's completely reactionary by Life, so there's not a complete calculation, there's no exact specifics in this game, as you will see shortly with the amount of gas that he builds up and all that kind of awesomeness, so there might actually be even a little bit of room for improvement. So let's jump straight into the game and I will show you the build. In the early part of the game we will see Life open up completely standard because, like I mentioned already, he doesn't decide that he wants to go for this push until he realizes that Jaedong opens up with a gasless build order. Life goes for a standard 15 hatchery right here in the natural base, and he follows this up with a 16 spawning pool. After that, he will get a gas geyser at the 18 supply mark. He will then follow this up with an Overlord at 17 supply. When the spawning pool finishes, he starts a queen in the main base as well as a queen in the natural right away. This is also the moment that StarCraft Life sees that Jaedong opens up gasless, so this is when he decides to go for this build. Right after scouting that his opponent is gasless, he will instantly throw up the evolution chamber. At this point, however, he's still just injecting and still just making drones, doing no tricky shenanigans whatsoever. However, right when this evolution chamber finishes, he instantly starts the +1 missile attack upgrades for his roaches. A little bit into this upgrade researching, he will also start the Roach Warren. He is still making drones up to this point. However, around the 34 supply mark, which is right when he hits about max saturation in the main base and about 10 drones in the natural, he will stop droning for the time being and go straight into a lot of roaches production. So right now he's actually saving up quite a lot of minerals and gas. Also, while this Roach Warren is still building, he will produce 2 Overlords just to clear up some supply. Once the Roach Warren finishes, he will instantly start as many roaches as he possibly can, so that is 8 roaches in total right now, but as you can see, he's going straight back into droning, so those are the only roaches he makes for now. Right when the roaches spawn, however, he will go for a double gas in the natural right away as well, all the while just making more and more drones to make sure he gets his natural saturated as soon as he possibly can. Right when this push is happening, as you can see, +1 attack will be finishing up, and he will try and actually get into the main base, and he will successfully do so. However, while he's pushing out, however, he's just still making more and more drones. He's making sure he gets everything he wanted. At this point, he starts the +1 carrot base upgrade in his evolution chamber as well, and he transitions into a third hatchery. At this point, he also starts getting the lair. All the while, as you can see, these are the only 8 roaches that he makes, and he tries to maximize the amount of damage he can get out of those. But all the while, he's not making any more units, just making sure he gets some max saturation going. After getting max saturation in the main base, as well as the natural, as well as the third base going up, he will actually make another second round of roaches right now. These are roaches that he will use for either poking purposes, but he will also use those for defense if it turns out to be necessary. So while he hits max saturation, and before droning up the third base, he will make a couple of roaches that he uses. So while he's waiting for his lair to finish up and the third base to finish up, and while having max saturation in the main and natural, he will make a couple of roaches to make sure he can push out a little bit. However, at this point he's going straight back into droning once more to make sure this third hatchery is about halfway saturated, which is the standard way to play. And once the lair finishes up, he will instantly start the glio reconstitution. Once the third base is up and running with about 10 or so drones, he will go straight back into massive amounts of roach productions. He will not make any more drones for the time being, because it just is not necessary in ZVZ. Life will move out with the second roach wave right here, right when glio reconstitution finishes up. So as you can see, he has an enormous amount of roaches, he has a severe supply advantage right now over his opponent, and this push will just straight up kill Jaedong. As you can see, this second attack wave was meant to kill his opponent, and the first one was really only meant to try and do as much damage as you possibly can while scouting your opponent went for a gasless build. And at this point, Jaedong knows it's over as well. There's more and more reinforcements coming in for StarCraft, and he's just making non-stop roaches, making sure this game gets secured in his favor. A little bit later, when Jaedong realizes that this game is over, he will GG out. So yeah, that is pretty much it. A relatively easy build order to execute, but keep in mind it will only work if your opponent is opening up gasless. What I would advise you to do is actually jump into a custom game and practice this a couple of times before jumping on the ladder and getting all frustrated if you actually forget to build, for example, an evolution chamber. Also, keep in mind there's a written version of this build order, so check the description of this video. It will take you straight to the LowkoTV website, and I will actually have a written version of the build right there if you want to open it on your other monitor or something like that. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button below because it helps me out a ton. Also, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more, and besides that, I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day, do not forget to smile, and I will see you in the next StarCraft video. Bye! This is a game between probably two of the best Zerg vs Zerg players of all time. Like both StarCraft, who spawned in the top right corner of Jansu Alley. StarCraft